What lie within the walls of Fortress Vader? Greetings, Acolytes, and welcome back to the archives. Recently, our researchers have been obsessed with the topic of Sith temples. Each of them have a unique purpose or function that sets them apart from all the other temples in the galaxy. Unlike Jedi temples or fortresses, Sith always have specifics in mind when they build a structure for themselves other than making it a living place. This brings us to a unique Sith fortress in the lore, Darth Vader's own castle on Mustafar. Fortress Vader, as it's called, is something that has been explored quite a few times in canon. Ever since we laid our eyes on it in Rogue One, we haven't been able to get our thoughts off of what lies inside the giant black stone fortress. And in today's holocron, we wanted to take you on a tour of this haunted location, speak about each room in Vader's castle that we know of, and why it became the most feared location on all of Mustafar. It would be impossible to discuss Fortress Vader without at least addressing its construction and design. The castle had originally meant to serve the Dark Lord in his growth in the dark side. This is why he chose the world of Mustafar in which to build his residence. When Palpatine gifted Vader a specific Sith artifact, everything about his castle's construction changed. This artifact was of course the mask of Darth Maul, an ancient Sith. The mask possessed any wearer of it with the spirit of the old Sith Lord. When an Imperial officer got possessed by Maul, he struck a deal with Lord Vader. In exchange for a favor, Maul would build him a castle with a specific function. Right on top of where the fortress sat, there was a Sith cave which housed a dark side nexus of powerful energy. With the right architectural construction, one could harness this nexus in order to open a portal into the very Force itself, giving one the ability to bring back the spirit of a deceased person into the world of the living in their own body. Vader saw this as his golden opportunity to get back his lost wife and Padme, and so he approved the construction. The castle took over 9 different attempts, with the construction being plagued by failures, miscalculations, and interference from the native Mustafarians. The natives could sense that something evil was happening on the horizon, and finally, the construction would be completed. But before Lord Vader could enact his plan to resurrect his wife, Maul betrayed him and resurrected himself instead. Vader would duel Maul to the death, resulting in the collapse of the dark side cave and the destruction of the portal to the Force. Even though the fortress was no longer serving its original purpose though, Vader decided to use it as his residence, considering it was still the perfect architecture for a Sith Lord. The angular tower rose high into the ashy volcanic sky of Mustafar, tipped with something like a tuning fork, which was said to tune the dark side. This likely meant that the design was similar to how ancient Sith temples would focus on the arcane energies of the Force down in the very center of their tombs. But with Fortress Vader, the tuning fork likely caused the entire castle to be flooded with the power of the dark side. It was truly the perfect place for a Sith Lord to hang his helmet. But what actually happened inside of Fortress Vader? Before we get into the specifics of the rooms that we know about, there is an important thing to mention. Unlike many Sith, Vader was something of a minimalist. He cared nothing for status, expensive decor, or elaborate ritualistic carvings. This means that the castle was pretty bare bones and only had rooms that served specific purposes for Vader. Having said this, the fortress was very large, as Maul constructed it for the purpose of tuning the Force in a particular way in order to open the portal. But since that purpose was now obsolete, there was a lot of unneeded room within the walls of the castle. Because of this, the rooms were very few, but were disproportionately large in order to fill up space. Many of the rooms were simply left empty to be used whenever they arose the need for them, and we'll discuss that in just a moment. The first room we would like to mention in the castle though was Vader's throne. Finally revealed in the Kenobi series, the throne room is an open space with an obsidian throne sat atop a terrace stairway right in the center. Surrounding the throne is a wide view window which overlooks the very volcanic beach where Anakin was burned. This was to always remind Vader of his greatest failure, to allow him to meditate on his plan for that moment. The throne would face a hollow communications array where Vader takes all of his off-world meetings. Interestingly, one thing that we note is that this is the only place where Vader doesn't kneel before Palpatine when speaking to him. In all other places, such as his Star Destroyer, the Emperor is a larger-than-life hologram to Vader, one that he genuflects before. However, in the throne room, Vader remains seated and looks down upon a smaller hologram of his master whenever the call comes in. It's a unique detail that shows us that there is a place where Vader considered himself to be the ruler, and that the lava-filled world of his birth is his kingdom. But of course, as a result of his rebirth on Mustafar, he requires a room which is likely the most important in the entire castle, the Bacta tank. Given a room all his own, Vader's tank is one of the only places that he finds any semblance of solace or time to himself. Without the suit, he relies on the healing fluid of the Bacta to soothe his injuries and to give him time to meditate and think. Few people are allowed in this room because this is where Vader is at his most vulnerable. Fascinatingly, it seems the Emperor has lent his apprentice 2 of his royal guards who flank either side of the room while Vader is within the tank. The only other people allowed inside would be a medical droid and Vader's trusted personal attendant, Vinay. Other than the Bacta room though, Vader also finds another place to meditate where his focus on the dark side is stronger. But back to the royal guards, we believe that they are not here as direct protectors to Vader, but rather an open threat of the Emperor's reach and influence, that even at his most vulnerable, Palpatine is always present. But back to the other room. Just like on his Star Destroyer, Fortress Vader boasts a meditation sphere located in a room closer to the top of the castle, directly under the tuning fork, as if connecting to a satellite dish of the dark side. Vader is able to sit in his meditation sphere and receive all of the flooding power of the Force that his castle is accumulating. The rest of the rooms in the castle serve other pragmatic purposes. While Fortress Vader is a lonely place with very few Imperial personnel, one can find most of them around the base of the castle where the TIE hangar is located. This is where Vader stores his personal TIE when it is not on his Star Destroyer. A garrison of stormtroopers can also be found stationed here, but nowhere else in the castle. It's a little known fact as to why, but it's more than likely that the troops just don't have clearance to the upper levels. But where they do have access is an area around the same level of the hangar, which are the dungeons. Like any good Sith fortress, there is a small prison block which houses servants that displeased Vader, as well as captured Jedi occasionally. Vader has these prisoners either tortured to death or interrogated, or both in the case of surviving Jedi. In fact, Kanan Jarrus narrowly escaped this fate when Grand Moff Tarkin had him captured and almost delivered to Vader's castle. But thanks to the canon game Vader Immortal, we also know that the dungeons house persons of interest. And this takes us to the multi-purpose rooms. At one time, Vader was attempting to unlock the secrets of Lady Corvax. Lady Corvax, who had used an artifact known as the Bright Star to create something called the Ion Engine. According to legend, this creation was said to be able to bring back the dead, but had been the reason for Mustafar's transformation into a volcanic hellscape. Vader, of course, was trying to follow this lead and to bring Padme back, but only a member of the Corvax bloodline could properly use the Bright Star and activate the engine. Vader would begin capturing Force sensitives and keeping them within his dungeon to run tests, seeing if any of them were from the Corvax bloodline. And eventually, Vader would find a match. In one of the other castle rooms, he devoted it to the storage of the Bright Star and had many artistic carvings of the Corvax legend brought into the room for study. Right next to this room was the training area where he kept many Jedi lightsabers, along with lightsaber training droids and blaster remotes. It was in this room that he had the descendant of Lady Corvax trained in order to unlock her latent abilities in the Force so that she could activate the engine. And now, the final 2 locations in Vader's castle are the most obscure and mysterious. The first would be an underground passage to a secret area where he kept the Exegol Wayfinder and a Sith holocron. We aren't actually sure whose holocron this is, as all the information pertaining to it was cut in the final release of the latest films. But hopefully one day we will receive confirmation if Vader actually did construct a holocron of his own. But there was one room in this castle that is very strange, and that we have kept for the end intentionally, and that is the shrine to Padme Amidala. This is the only room in the entire castle where something unique happens. It is the only room that has anything pertaining to Anakin Skywalker, where he carries a small hollow picture of Padme, a room to venture to think about his dead wife, to think about his mistakes, as Vader himself too loved Padme. In a twisted, horrific way, the identity of Lord Vader is born from a fascination with Padme Amidala. It is his genesis. Fortress Vader is truly a castle that is dedicated to the Dark Lord and not Skywalker. Everything about its construction, appearance, and purpose all serves the part of Vader that is purely a Sith. One of the most fascinating parts of the castle is that there is absolutely nothing which appeals to Anakin. While this may seem obvious at first, think about what we never see. We never see a workshop in Fortress Vader. A characteristic of Anakin was his love of building and fixing things, but Vader never bothers to tinker or work within the halls of his home. And although we do know that Vader would tinker with his TIE fighter and even his suit, there is nothing in the castle, at least nothing that we know of yet. The castle overlooks the spot where he was burned. It makes sense that this entire place was purely Lord Vader and the representation of the death of Anakin. Even after Vader's demise, his castle was treated as a place of great evil by both the native Mustafarians and anyone who ventured inside of it. Many considered it haunted and cursed to this very day. A great evil still lies there, what remains of Lord Vader. But tell us, friends and acolytes, what are your thoughts on Fortress Vader? Had you ever wondered what was in the rooms of Vader's castle? And let us know, which of the rooms do you find the most fascinating or the most horrific? As always, my friends, thank you for visiting the channel and the archives today, and may the Force be with you.